Hi everyone, today let's go over LULU Earnings, then we'll go over Max Payne just for a moment, then we'll go over the charts, then we'll go over my results for the day and my thoughts going into tomorrow's session. If you like trading stocks and options and making money, definitely like and subscribe. I make videos like this every single day that the markets are open, so make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Welcome to the Portfolio Bulletin. Let's get started. So LULU beat earnings expectations and they upped their forward guidance. They say the stock was up 14% in pre-market trading, putting the company at a $40 billion valuation. You can see earnings per share was $4.40 versus the $4.26 expected. Revenue, $2.77 billion compared to $2.7 billion. So beat both the top and the bottom line expectations. And this is compared to $3.36 from a year ago, so strong growth. And they continue to deliver on their forward guidance. They expect to make $9.3 billion, which was higher than the $9.14 billion expected by Wall Street. So they beat on everything and raised forward guidance. And then the huge gap up and rally is what you see when you get companies that do all of these things in one go. Moving over to Max Payne here for the SPY. Looking at Friday, you can see Max Payne still at $3.95. The stock was much higher than that today, so keep that in mind. Put call ratio still very high at 2.3. The amount of options in the market is actually pretty high for this week. 2.5 million. Usually this is hovering closer to 1 million, maybe 1.3 million. So this is pretty high for a non-third week of the month close. And you can see just how many puts are in the system, 1.7 million. And you can see those here, tons of them at 380, 390, some calls at 400, but a lot more calls at 410. So we could certainly close above 400 and still be happy, especially with how many puts are here at 400. I would expect that we'll probably close above 400 on the week, but it certainly could go a little bit lower than that, 388, 389, and allow these calls to be worthless as well. So 400's really the center point for me. Remember, Max Payne is 395, but if it does finish 401, that wouldn't be too bad. 401.50, certainly a possibility. So that's what I'm looking at here on options. And then you can see the slope of that put wall, generally indicating that we're not going to go too much lower, but you can't expect that we're going to go much higher than 401, 402 either here on the weekly close. Moving over to the charts, starting off with the SPY here on the hourly and the daily chart. So you can see we gapped up and rallied. So it's kind of a gap and go situation. We're above resistance here at the 399.25 level. Moving over to the daily chart, you can see we're looking for that major resistance up around 404.37. That's what I'm looking at for upside potential here. Remember, I talked about Max Payne still being at 395. But probably above 400, 401, 402 is probably okay in terms of a close. So if we get up this high, I would expect that we're not going to stay that high at the end of the week. But it's certainly possible based on the huge jump that we had here today that we could go much higher tomorrow, tag that level just like we did going into the Fed announcement from the 21st to the 22nd, gapped up, got the big rally, touched that resistance, and then sold off pretty strong. That's kind of what I'm looking for here, where we come up, test that level, and then probably ultimately finish pretty much unchanged from where we are right now. Otherwise, looking at momentum, very bullish here on the daily chart. MACD on the hourly chart, slightly neutral, still sloping up, still could go higher, but might get a little bit of a downswing in the early session and then a continuation higher. That would be interesting. Going back to the daily chart here, you can see we're stuck at the high of day from 9 March, which was at 401.48. So watch that level, 401.48, trying to get above that level. If we can, then we're looking at 404.86. To the downside, still watching that 399.25 level. If we break down, if we get below that level, then I'm looking back down to the area of highest volume here at 396. Moving over here to the NASDAQ on the 4-hour and the 1-day chart, you can see similar thesis, gapped up, rallied pretty aggressively, testing these previous highs. So we do have a little bit of resistance to the upside, looking at 314 to the upside. And then if we can get through there, then we have the major trend lines sitting up around 315, 315.20. Tomorrow, I'll be watching the 325.50 level pretty closely. If we get back below that level, then we might be coming back down to 310.80. That would be interesting. pretty much the low of the 11 o'clock candle on the 4-hour chart from today. Similar thesis on the daily chart. You can see we had that wick rejection yesterday, gapped up, momentum stepping in the bullish direction. RSI still looks bullish. 4-hour momentum definitely bullish. 4-hour RSI also looks bullish. And I do think everything is going to go a little bit higher tomorrow. The question is just how much higher can we go? There's not a lot of upside over the next couple of days. I still think up is the direction for tomorrow, but probably not into Friday's session. Moving over to the Russell and the Dow here on the 4-hour chart, you can see similar thesis on the Russell, gapped up, did retrace, did fill the gap, then rallied, so it still looks strong. 174.38 was that level, held that level, and then rallied higher. Looking to push up to that 177.33 level. Looks pretty possible going into tomorrow or the next day. Similar to what we had on Monday the 20th, going into Tuesday the 21st. Before we had that major sell-off from the 177.33 level. If we do get below 174.38, that's going to be a pretty good indicator that we're probably going back down to 172, maybe all the way down to 170.35. So keep that in mind. MACD, bullish. RSI, still bullish. Everything looks okay. A little bit concerning that we don't have a ton of volume on this most recent push compared to what we saw going back to Wednesday, but still looks okay right now. Still above VWAP, not too bad. Looking at the Dow, similar thesis, looking up to 329.40. That's right in line with the 144 EMA at 329.49. So right in this zone, looks like resistance. As long as we stay above 325.71, should be in good shape. You also have the high going back to the 22nd at 327.48. So just below that level, looking to get above there, looking to get back to 329.40. Moving over to Apple and Tesla here, you can see we came back into that key level, tested 161, looking to get up to that 162 upper level of this trend. You can see that is a major trend line from a long time ago. It's the level we tested on 22 March. That's where you would like to see a rejection if we are going to go a little bit lower. That's what I'm looking for to the upside here. Retest that upper level. I don't necessarily know if we're going to get above there either. Momentum's still bullish, so it certainly could happen, but 162 seems like a pretty decent take profit to the upside. Looking at Tesla, you can see we did close above that 193.50 level, so certainly looks like we could go up to 197.75, or the high of day going back to the 27th, which was 197.38. So watch out for that level right in this zone. Certainly could go there. That's what I'm looking for tomorrow on Tesla. We did finish pretty strong after retesting the 193.50 level on that first candle, finding rejection and then finding support at the VWAP and then pushing much higher into the end of session. MACD bullish, RSI bullish. Everything looks good going into tomorrow's session. Moving over to Amazon and Microsoft here just for a moment, I want to highlight how we have a very similar consolidation pattern. We closed right at the top of these patterns, and then it looks like we're getting ready to break out tomorrow. That would be interesting. Microsoft looking very strong as well, gapped up, rallied right at the top of that range, looking to get above 281.30. If we can get above there, then we have about $2 up to the high of day, going back to Friday the 17th, which is at 283.31. So a couple dollars of upside potential to there. If we do break back down, looking at 278.49. Similarly here on Amazon, if we can get up to that most recent high, 102.06. If we do not get above where we are right now, looking back at $99. And if that breaks down, then we're looking back to the low of this range around 96.30 or so. So a little bit of upside potential right in the middle of the range, looking to break out tomorrow. And if these do break out, that should push the SPY and the NASDAQ higher. If these are not breaking out and we see a little bit of a push on NASDAQ and SPY, certainly could be a little bit of a fake out, and it's worth watching. So we need to see these bigger stocks pushing higher and carrying the markets if we are going to take out the levels that we're at right now. Moving over to consumer staples and consumer discretionary here, you can see staples did push up a little bit. We did gap down a little bit after hours, which is interesting. But overall, still looking fairly bullish, finding support above that 200 SMA at 73.64. That's interesting. Need to stay above that level if we're going to go higher. Looking to this most recent high at $74. Got pretty close to that level. If we can get above there, then we have the high going back to February 1st at about 174.64. So again, not a ton of upside here, and we're at the top of the range. Moving over to discretionary, however, we're in this zone. Looks very bullish, moving higher, looking to retest the bottom of this resistance zone at 146.72. Discretionary looking a little bit more bullish here, and staples looking to fall back a little bit, which is what you want to see if we are looking for some higher highs in the overall markets. Moving over to energy and utilities here. Utilities gapped up, rallied. We're looking for that push up to this area of highest volume at 84.50 or so. You also have the lows of that consolidation at 83.43, which would be very close to the 144 EMA. Everything looking good here still, pretty close to overbought conditions, so that's interesting, but certainly looks like we could go much higher. Looking over at utilities, that sell-off that we had at the end of the day was a bit of a fake out. Unfortunately, got up to that $67 price target that I had yesterday, wicked it just for a moment. The high of day was $67.01, but still looking good, still looking to retest 76.18. If we can get above that level, then we have this kind of center pylon looking at $67.98. $68 right at the 144 EMA, which is currently trading at 68.02 here on the 4-hour chart. Momentum on both still looks bullish. RSI still looks bullish. Everything looks good on both of these charts going into tomorrow's session. Moving over to transportation on the 4-hour and the daily chart, you can see similar thesis to everything else. We made that low and we've been rallying, looking to retest the 55 EMA here on the 4-hour chart. If we can get above that on the 4-hour, then we're looking at 226.83. Looking at the daily chart for a moment, you can see we're above that 200, which is good. Looking to retest the trend line here at 223.80, right at that 55 EMA on the 4-hour chart. And then we have VWAP sitting up here at 224.76. So still a couple levels of resistance. Looking to get above these levels. If we can, then we're looking at the 55 EMA here on the daily chart. That would be very bullish, up at 229.80. Lots of upside if we can get to that zone. But we also have the low pretty much from this head and shoulders type formation that we have. So there's going to be some resistance quite a bit in this area. But if we can get a good push through here, there's quite a bit of upside. And if the rest of the markets are rallying, you really want to see transports going with everything else. Momentum on the 4-hour still looks good. RSI still looks good. Momentum on the daily chart, finally giving you that green candle here. RSI still looks very good. Certainly seems like we could go higher in tomorrow's session. Moving over to semis, you can see same thesis, gapped up, rallied. We're above resistance here, which is good. Looking at that 257.14 level. We can continue to rally on the 12-hour chart. You can see this area of resistance sitting up here at 268.10. That's the trend. That marks the high from February. If we get up there, you wouldn't expect that we're going to go any higher. So keep that in mind. Still a decent amount of upside potential, about $10 here on semis. We also have the high going back to the 23rd, sitting up at 261.78. So keep an eye on that high, but really looking to interact with this upper trend line. And if we do get there, I would expect that's going to be the end of this rally. Moving over to yields just for a moment, you can see we're above this lower resistance band going back to the lows from October of 22, as well as January and February of this year. Looking to push up to that 4.265 level. We did run out of steam here a little bit though. Candle of indecision certainly could be a reversal candle. That would be interesting. You can see we wicked some of these levels here as well. If we're going to reverse, it's probably going to happen now. Otherwise, we're going to see a bigger push up to that next level, about a 1/4 point higher. Zooming out here on the 10-year, I want to highlight this channel that we were in because we are pretty close to that resistance level once again. And if we get rejection from there and we start to move lower, that should be pretty bullish for stocks. So keep that in mind. We're at resistance here on yields. And if this starts to turn over here, that should give us quite a bit of momentum across the major indices, which could give us that push up to the higher highs that we need to really continue this trend a little bit higher. Moving over to the dollar here on the 4-hour and the daily chart, you can see we still have this higher low type formation. We held that low again today. Momentum on the 4-hour, slightly green, but very minimal. daily chart did step down here again today, so certainly looks like we could get a push higher. Definitely in an interesting level here. So higher low tends to mean that we're going to go higher. But after we went up a little bit and hit the 21 EMA on the 4-hour chart, we pretty much turned down from there, and now we're kind of stuck sideways. So if we're going to go higher, it really needs to happen now before we run out of momentum. In terms of levels, still looking at that 103.64 level to the upside, just above the 55-day moving average. And if we can get above there, then I'm looking at 104.41. To the downside, still looking at this trend line right around 102. Moving over to high yields here on the 4-hour and the daily chart. Got a beautiful island reversal. You can see, looked like island reversal setup, gapped up, rallied, got above the 91 level. You love to see it confirming the rally here today. This confirms a higher low as well, and you would expect that this is going to continue. You see a huge step up on momentum, 4-hour momentum bullish, 4-hour RSI also bullish. Everything looks good, looking to push up to the 200-day moving average, up around 91.80. That would be interesting. Similar level here on the 200 SMA actually on the 4-hour chart, 91.64. So quite a bit of upside, looking to tag those levels. If we do get the continuation here, that should confirm the rally in pretty much everything else. Moving over to TLT just for a moment. It really hasn't done anything for 2 days. I haven't really been covering it because of that. You can see after the fall on Monday, we went sideways and then went sideways again today. We did dip a little bit and then find some support, which is interesting, similar to what we saw here going back to Wednesday of last week, which does give me a little bit of a bullish thesis. If we can get above this resistance at 104.50, then we could see a push up to maybe 105.20. That would be interesting. Or maybe even all the way up to fill the gap here at 106.81. That would be a huge push, obviously. Probably not in one day, but does give you kind of some perspective on where we are. It's been really choppy looking at this 12-hour chart. Island reversal, move down, found support at the 200 on the 12-hour chart, sitting at resistance. And if we could push up, like I said, area of highest volume here on the 12-hour, 105.29. And then the next level is this next node at 106.90. Moving over to the VIX here on the 4-hour and the 12-hour, we gapped down, which is good. We didn't hit that 1850 level yet. If we do get to that zone, that's something I'm going to be watching for. That's the low going back to Monday the 6th. If we hit that zone, we might find a little bit of a bounce. That would be interesting and bearish for stocks. Momentum stepping down here a little bit on the 4-hour as well as the 12-hour. Certainly still looks weak and still haven't hit that major support level. So looking for that 1850 level and then watching to see what happens there. Certainly could go lower like we did here in January and February, all the way down to 1815. That would be interesting. Or all the way to the trend. That would be pretty crazy down at 1621 in the medium term. But right now, 1850 first level, 1815 next level after that. Moving over to my results here, you can see up about $500, just a little bit less than. Reestablished my put here on the IWM at 173 for $82, already in a $35 profit. Held that 173 put to expiration, max profit there. Moving over to my NASDAQ position, I ended up opening some covered calls here. I sold the 311s for a little bit of money, and then I ended up rolling them to 312 up and out. I don't think I'm going to end up holding these past tomorrow. If we can close above 312, that would be awesome, and I'll probably let these go. And then I do have some 310 puts as well to re-enter the stock potentially, depending on what it's looking like. I still want to see that push above 314, but like I said, looking for the stock to hold above 312.50. If we get below 312.50, that's probably going to be a spot where I want to at least exit these puts. I got a $2.14 credit on these calls here, so gives me a little bit of protection, but not a lot. Looking at XLE here on my Roth position, big profits, pretty much at max profit here with 2 days to expiration. So have to keep an eye on this one. 83-cent credit for the 81 strike, so 9 cents above my max profit. But the issue here is when you hold these positions, you can see this $40 loss. That's not reality because this is a covered position with the shares. And then if you exit here, then you're not going to be able to realize that full profit. So something to keep in mind if you ever want to trade covered calls. I'll be watching this one in tomorrow's session. Should be okay. I'm not too worried about it, but something to think about. Let me know down in the comment section what you think of LULU. or the options currently in the SPY? Are we going to be able to continue this rally, or are we going to hit resistance and reject like we did on the Fed announcement? Definitely like and subscribe if you got any value out of this video. Make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Of course, none of this is financial advice. This is all for entertainment purposes. Good luck in your trading and have a great day.